Hey guys, how you doing? This is jpsarrireviews coming to you once again with another episode of Age of Heroes, my podcast. So I hope that you're having a good start of your week, ready to tackle all the challenges of, every day, the challenges at home, the financial challenges, the challenges at work, the challenges overall of everything that we do in life. And today I want to say, first of all, I want to congratulate all the fathers. Of course, this past weekend, yesterday, we celebrated Father's Day. Not only here in North America, but also in many parts of the world, they celebrate, Father's Day, which is always a great time to celebrate our fathers and also to be celebrated. We are fathers. And definitely, in my case, it was a fantastic time that I spent with my wife, with my daughter. We went to church. So it was a great time for us. We went out and eat, and it was a good time. I really enjoy it. And I want to congratulate all the fathers, every person, every man that listens to the podcast, that watches my videos. Also to those men that are probably you don't have any kids, you're expecting children, probably you're not married, even if you don't have kids. I think the spirit of in this case, fatherhood is in every man, and I feel that every man has the potential to be and become a great father. And it's a matter of choice and also the sacrifices that go along with it. But everyone has a potential. And definitely I was thinking about it. It really made me realize yesterday, I was blessed. My daughter, came to visit. She doesn't live with us. She lives on her own. She's 18 years old. She's now independent. She wants to do her thing. So she came to visit. She came, went to church with us. Normally she doesn't do that. Which it was nice to see her, to be here with us, and really dedicate that time. Really touched my heart. But also make me realize a lot of things, and then of course going to the church and, the preaching that was there. The son of the pastor actually was the one that preached, and I enjoy his preaching. He's very young, very energetic, but he is also a young father. But he was sharing from his heart. It was a beautiful service. But definitely, it really impacted me, of course, the service and what they were talking about. And also people sharing their lives. There were a couple of young people there, young kids sharing their lives and their experiences with their fathers. So that was, to me, touching and really make me think about just sharing that. Normally, every week, I try to bring subjects to this podcast that are really important to all of us. Subjects that have to do with movies, that have to do with comics, that have to do with entertainment in general, have to do with gaming. But sometimes I also like to talk about things that really touch the heart of all of us. Because ultimately, regardless of who we are, regardless of our differences, whether our nationality, our race, our educational background, our work, our professional life, regardless of who we are, regardless of our beliefs, whether we are Republicans or Democrats, liberals or independents, or if we are conservative in our values, whatever it is, whether we are agnostics or religious or, we have a relationship with God or not, whether we believe that God exists or not, we all share the same things and we share the same. At the end of the day, we are human beings. We all have a heart and we all have purpose. And I think it's important sometimes to talk about those things. And I feel that this is a place where I have a platform where I can share how I feel about certain things and also empower other people to live life and to enjoy life and to pretty much succeed in their challenges that we all have to face and that, we all have an experiences. I'm not telling you that I'm the wisest man or the wisest person in the room, but I have learned a lot of things through my experiences, good and bad, through my faults and through my failures. I've learned a lot of great lessons that I would have never learned when I was younger, like 20 years ago. And I have learned to value the power of parenthood, the power of fatherhood, the power of being a man. Many could say right now that being a man is under attack. You hear all the time, like people complain about the feminist agenda here and there. And you hear all the time. I hear all the time, even on my channel, people make comments about it. Even in the Facebook groups, always people say, women are this, they're trying to take over, kind of. That's what they're saying. That they want to change men. They want, pretty much control men. And like I said many times before, I don't have a problem with strong women. I actually praise strong women. I think it's good when a strong man is accompanied by a strong woman. I think they can complement each other. In relationship, it's about complementing each other. And I feel that our society, it's good when every person that is part of the society is given a voice. So I'm all for strong women and they're well represented in all type of entertainment, whether it's movies, whether it's gaming, with anything. So I don't really see the problem with a lot of people seeing that, they trying to enforce this or change that. I feel that people are saying it from their own personal bias or personal beliefs. I'm not against it. I'm not saying that it's wrong. You can believe what you want to believe. It's freedom of speech. You can express it. Personally, I don't. To me, the reason why sometimes it appears that women are stronger and it has to do or want stronger roles in everything, it has to do more with men being weak. And it seems that nowadays men are weaker than ever before. The society is full of men that are technically, they blame everyone, they call everybody a snowflake, but they're actually snowflakes themselves, because they cannot really accept criticism, or they cannot deal with it, or they cannot simply, be man enough and accept that they're not always right. We're not always right. I'm not always right. No one is. And I feel that because men have kind of put aside their responsibilities as men, and in this case as fathers, we have a weak society because there's no strong father figures. And I think we need to get back to that. Now, the reason when I was thinking about it yesterday, I was thinking about the impact of my father in my life. My father was he's not perfect, he's still alive. But he had a great impact in my life to be who I am today. He was a man of strong beliefs. He was a man of faith. He was a man that, he was a very ethical man. He was a man that worked really hard. My father is a chemical engineer. He is semi-retired now. But he worked for a lot of companies, international companies, American companies, companies based in the UK. He worked for companies Latin America, Mexico. So he was always away. He was always away from home. He was constantly, sometimes I didn't see him for months because he was always in the field. He was always traveling. He was always in jungles or in deserts or on ships. So he was in platforms, doing all kind of testing, experiments, doing all kind of sort of representing these companies. He worked for some of the biggest companies in the world. So he was always away, but he was working really hard, to provide for our home. I went to private school, we had everything we wanted. My father really worked really hard. But one thing I can say about my dad that I always, he was my hero. He was the person that I admire, and I always wanted to be like him because when he was home, my father was the one that introduced me to all the things that I enjoy today. He introduced me to comics. I remember sometimes he would come to visit during the summer, for example, or he'd come to pick us in the summer. As soon as the summer hits, he will come and pick us up. Sometimes he didn't even tell us. And as soon as I'm walking out of the school, my mother already had my, the luggage all ready to go, and daddy will take us to, whatever he was working, and my brother and I will spend time with him. And one of the things that he will always make sure is, because I spent so much time in the hotel during that time, there were places that we couldn't go with him in the jungle. So he will leave us in a, nearby town, nearby city. And he will leave us in the hotel, all taken care of. So I live in the hotel during summers, and it was fun. But my father will take us to, let's say, places, like places where they sell newspaper stands, all that kind of places. And he will buy us multiple comics. And something that he would do, I was born in Mexico, so I live in Mexico as a kid. He would take us some places where you can buy all comic books, like real old comic books in boxes. You buy the whole box and you have multiple comic books, from Western comic books, from, Turok, Tarzan, all that kind of stuff, from like Disney, from comics from Marvel, DC. You have an array, an assortment of comics. So I will just dig through that through the summer in a hotel. And I loved it. My dad was the one that introduced me to comics. He loved comics. He introduced us to movies. He loved movies, of course, and he would take us to to watch all the movies. He would take me to watch movies that today we would not take our kids to. He was my hero. He was the one that took me fishing. I'm not a fan of fishing. I live in an area where there's a lot of fishing and people love going the boat, go fishing. I'm not crazy about it. My daddy took me fishing a lot. And sometimes I didn't like it, but my father loved cartoons. He introduced me to watch cartoons, to watch movies like Japanese movies, Godzilla movies. That was my dad. And he introduced me to anything that was miniature, anything that was like kind of like my passion into modeling, anything, like die cast. He was the one, little trains, little maquettes. He was the one that introduced me to all those things. And of course, it developed into the statues and all that when I got older. So my father was an example. And when I really look back at my life, when I look at what I enjoy, a lot of it has to do with his, pretty much his influence in my life. He was there, and he was good. He wasn't perfect and he made a lot of mistakes. But my father really made the effort, even in his imperfections, because my father didn't grow up with his father. Even in his imperfections and in his limitations, he understood the importance of spending time with him, and he became my hero. Over time, our relationship, went really in a different direction because, of course, my parents separated at some point. They were separated for 10 years. So it was a tough situation when I was, we were older. And my relationship with my father was a bit strained. Something that after many years now, of course, I became a father, I have a daughter. Now I can see the difficulties of marriage, the difficulties of raising a family, and how difficult it is, and the sacrifices you have to make. Now I can value a lot of things, and I can understand, I can be more forgiving of the things that he did wrong. And understanding that he was human trying to do the right thing. But for the most part, he pretty much instilled in us a sense of respect, a sense of ownership, a sense of value, a sense of bravery. He also was the man that introduced me to reading. He always said, you need to read. And I read a lot of novels because he was an avid reader. He read a lot of novels, a lot of classics. And he was the person that introduced me to all these wonderful worlds that really marked my life into the things that I liked, sci-fi, adventure, historical information, all of that. He was my dad. And I feel now, and the reason why I'm bringing this up today, and the reason why I want to talk about it is because I realize that sometimes as we, grow, as we get older, as we move through life and through the challenges of life, we sometimes embrace what we do, and like our job, because we have to provide for our home, we have a family, we have to do this. And we don't even understand this, but we forget the importance of pretty much an example. We are the example our children will go by. They see us and they admire what we do and they want to be like us. We don't realize it that much. Sometimes we think, we come home, we're tired, we want to get into our own world, we got to get into our own hobbies, and we forget that our kids are watching and also that they are paying attention, and they also want to be part of our lives. They want to embrace our lives because to them we are heroes. Every time we leave the house to fight in the world, in the real world for them, they realize the sacrifices, but also they want to spend more time. They want to be more intimate with us in that sense. They want to know us from the inside out. So it's important us as fathers to bring him into our lives, to be a participant of what we do. I remember when Sarah, my daughter, growing up, I spent a lot of time with her. I remember that, I didn't really take her to read a lot of comics because there were no comic book shops in the area we were living back then. And she was very little, but of course she liked to spend time with me. And, I played video games back then, and I introduced her to games, and she used to play games with me. One of the games that we enjoyed the most, that she enjoyed a lot, on the original Xbox, the first Xbox, was when I used to play, Midnight Club. She loved the Midnight Club because she liked to ride around with the car, and she was very little. The Nintendo 64, she used to play Banjo-Kazooie. She loved those things. We played so many games, Shrek 2 and the PlayStation 2. She loved that. She grew up that. Then on the the PS3 we played together. She liked Little Big Planet. We played together so many different times, and she was always there, and she admired. It's like she wanted to prove herself that I actually care about those things that I care about. Of course, I was younger, a younger man, only one child, my first child. It was hard for me sometimes to really understand the importance of spending more time with her. And sometimes nowadays I can kind of I would say that I made some mistakes. I'm not really spending more time with her than I needed to. And I learned from my mistakes. And now, of course, now it's reflected in the things we do. We love each other. We care for each other. But sometimes we don't see eye to eye on certain ththings, which is something normal. I think we all go through that. But she knows where I stand. She knows my beliefs. She might not accept a lot of my beliefs in my life, but we know she respects me and I respect her, and we love each other and we care for each other. Now, the reason why I'm bringing this up here, I think, it's important to point this out. We have to bring our kids into our lives. We think, but they're part of our lives, and yes, they are. We work hard for them. We go to the professional world, and we really work hard to pay the mortgage, to pay the bills, to really provide for their needs, to send them to school, make sure they have everything they need. But sometimes we come home and we get involved into our hobbies, whether it's, and I mean hobbies because a lot of people that follow my channel follow me for a lot of reasons. Statue collecting, we get involved into the statue collecting, or we get involved into the gaming thing. We get into our setup, whether it's PC, whether it's PlayStation 4, whether it's Xbox One or Switch, whatever. We get involved into our gaming. We kind of forget about them, we get involved into modeling. We get into, die-cast modeling, whatever hobbies or comics that we tend to forget that they're watching us, that they want to spend more time with us. So I think it's important. This is my invitation, and what I believe I have come to know over time is that we have to let them be part of it. We have to introduce them into it so they can see what is it that we love it so much, and ultimately they have to make their mind at the end if they want to do that, the same thing as we do. We cannot really force them to follow our passion, but we can introduce them for them to know us better, because the truth of the matter is that their hobbies are real reflection of who we are. So they have to be part of it. Like my father introduced me to fishing. He loved fishing, and I know a lot about fishing. I know how to really throw in it. I know how to, to do everything. But it never really caught my eye. I never really was too interested. But my father makes sure to introduce me. So I know my dad. He loves the fishing because it means, there's a lot of patience involved with it. It's a process of patience. He taught me how to play chess. I love chess and I love, until now, anything games that have to do with, pretty much strategy because of that. So when we're introduced to those things, it really changes our perspective of the world, and also really plants those seeds of who we're going to be. And I feel that it's important for us to do that with our kids. And also to support them in their own hobbies. But we have to know them. Sometimes the best way to know each other is sometimes doing silly things, whether it's playing video games. My father loved camping, and he took us camping a lot. And every time we went camping, actually I enjoy it now more than ever. I love outdoors, and it has to do a lot with the time we spend outdoors with my dad, which was a lot. Whenever, he got the chance, he will take us, camping. He will take us to a lake. He will take us to, different places, to go to old towns, to museums, all that. I always enjoyed that opportunity because he was my hero. And I feel that this is the part that I want to really bring to you today in this podcast. Remember this: a father equals a hero for a child. It is the same as a hero. There's no difference. And your kids, whether they are 1-year-old, 2-year-old, 3-year-old, 10-year-old, 15-year, 20-year-old, 40 years old, 50 years old, whatever age, they're always going to see you as their true hero. Now, how we spend the time with them, they might remember us as, that was the guy that used to work really hard to provide, but I didn't know my dad. Or you want him to remember you as, my dad, he worked really hard and he took time to do the homework with me. He took time to, watch television with me. He took time to play video games with me. Or he taught me how to do things like how to do carpentry, because that's not what my dad did. When he was home, he also taught me how to, you do carpentry, things like that, how to build a chair, all that. And, it really impacts us. We can say that the world is changing, but I think that just because the world changes doesn't mean that we have to change with it. Doesn't mean that just because the world is changing, and I'm not saying that some change is important, but I'm saying that some changes are bad. Some changes are taking away, the real good values that make, every family or every community or society strong. But we can still embrace it, because the government can say one thing, but the government doesn't control what I do at home. My home is my home. It's my castle. So if I want my family to be strong, if I want my kids to be strong, I have to be a strong man, and I have to really take the sacrifice, take the time to really show them and say, this is who I am, this is what I love, and make him participant of that. And you know what? They're going to appreciate it more than you think. So I invite you today to consider. Now, of course, Father's Day passed. Don't think about Father's Day just a one time a year where, you're celebrated and, we celebrate our parents and all that, but also a time to really reconsider and revalue ourselves, and really value and really go and check, what we have done throughout the year. And if there's anything that we haven't done right or things that we have missed or perhaps things that we need to improve in our lives as fathers, as men, that we can do that. Because ultimately our spouses and our kids are looking at us not only as, this is my husband, or this is my father, the person that brought me to this world, but they are seeing us as heroes, as their cavaliers, as the people that are there to defend them no matter what. And they're also the people that are there, even though they might be silly, because we can be silly, but they're there and they know where we stand and they can say, I knew my father. Because this is the part, many people in this world, they know who their father is, but they don't know him intimately. They don't know who their father truly is. You know what I'm saying? They can know who you are. They know you by name. They know who you are, your features and all that, but they don't know you, the real you. And it's important that we show the real us to our kids. And sometimes we are afraid to show who we really are. But don't be afraid, because it's important that also our kids can see how vulnerable we can be, what really stirs our passion. Because I doubt that work stirs people's passion. It doesn't stir my passion. I go to work because I have to work. But what really stirs my passion is when I talk about comics, when I talk about games, when I talk about movies. It stirs my passion. And that kids need to know that is what motivates us. And sometimes because those things are really attached deeply to a lot of emotional things in our lives that we really stand for our beliefs, our, pretty much our emotions are really attached to pretty much principles as human beings. So they really represent us. But this is what I want to share with you. So consider that. We have to always consider reevaluate ourselves, evaluate our lives and see where we stand, so we can be better. So I invite you that you reconsider or consider those factors. And if you have kids, whatever age, make it part of your life. It's never too late. It's better when they're young, but it's never too late to make it part of your life. And you'll see that it's going to create an impact. Well, they're going to remember it even when they have their kids. When they have it's going to make a difference. They're going to do the same thing that they saw through your example as parents, but also they're going to welcome you in their lives and also into their, your grandchildren's life. And that's always important. So that's what I want to share with you today. And thank you for listening. Thanks for watching this, this podcast. It is always a pleasure to spend time. Stay tuned for all the more stuff, all the podcasts. We continue talking about a lot of things. Last week we talk about gaming. I don't know exactly where we're going to be led this week, but of course we're going to be talking about whatever is current, but also other things that come to mind. So take care, my friends. God bless, and I'll talk to you again. Bye-bye.